How you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's kind of an easy week for me because normally when Illinois is 3-0 and in the top 25, there's a lot of pressure to show up and do this or that. But this week, there's not really. All the focus is on Nebraska and Dylan Raiola, and that's where the media attention's at. So for me, it's like I feel almost comfortable going into this game Friday night.
Okay, very good. Well, you have to excuse me, Sonny, for smirking just slightly when you said all those times that Illinois is 3-0 and ranked in the top 25. I guess we would have to go year to year, but I'm guessing that doesn't happen that often.
No, it hasn't happened since 2011. What I
Okay.
guess I meant to say is like usually if Illinois was 3-0, there'd be a lot of pressure to, are they for real? What's going to happen this game for? Right now, because Nebraska has such gravity when it comes to attention,
Yeah.
even Friday night, I'm looking forward to, most of the announcers, understandably, talking about Dylan, talking about Nebraska's hot 3-0 start and that fantastic defense that they have. There's not much expectation on the Illinois side. I saw at one point the spread had gotten as high as +10. I think it's gotten lower to -7.5. A little money has come in on the Illinois side now. So Friday night's a game where I'm going to be a little bit nervous, but I think it's going to be a good test of talent to see where these two teams are. Because if you take a look at the three teams that both teams have played, I don't know if there's much of a difference talent-wise. I'd be curious on your thoughts on who you think would be a favorite if Kansas and Colorado were to meet, because those are the two perceived big wins for each team. But again, Nebraska's got a heightened machine behind them, so they're locked in the top 25, where other folks are questioning whether Illinois should be.
Well, they're in my top 25, both of them, and safely within the top 25 because of this. We look at the results, and two things stand out concerning Illinois to me. One would be, of course, they were roughly a 5-point underdog at home against Kansas. That was one of the games of the week that I was like, shoot, even during the offseason, I was like, I really want to see this game, really want to see this game. Now, didn't get a chance to see as much as I had thought. I don't remember who else was playing, but when it stacked up later in the day on Saturday, my recordings seemed to backlog, and then I'm recording games and trying to catch up and so forth. So did not see that as well as I wanted to. What else stands out to me? But based on viewer feedback response here, people were surprised that Kansas is only a 5-point favorite. There was this just thought going into the game, well, Illinois is one of the last bottom 3 or 4 in the Big Ten, and Kansas could win the Big 12, and this shouldn't be a game. And Kansas trucked them last year, and that was pretty much the narrative coming in from most people. I was quite a bit more cautious than that. I took Illinois in the points. Now, in terms of the other two games that get dismissed because FCS, MAC team, however, look at Illinois' struggles against such competition in the past. And they went out there and they took care of business like an upper echelon team does, maybe not an elite team, 60-0, but a really good Power 5 team does against those type of opponents too. So they've shown up 3 consecutive weeks.
You're exactly right. In the past, under previous regimes, if we had a Central Michigan on the schedule, there was no looking past Central Michigan. You wanted to make sure that you were there and you played 60 minutes of good football. That seems to be no longer the case. With Brett Bielema in tow, he's considerably raised the floor of this program from when it was in the past. He's been able to get the right coaches in staff, and he's got a system which has already proven itself in the Big Ten previously. And so right now, like, we're at the points where like I've seen a lot of people who had Illinois in the bottom 3 or 4 in the Big Ten standings, and it confused me a bit. But I just think a lot of the luster had gone off of Illinois from the season 2 years ago, just because of the way they stumbled after starting the season 7-1. We had a couple new head coaches in the conference, Luke Fickell, Matt Rule, and so Ryan Walters. So a lot of the attention on Illinois had gotten kind of stale. And so I feel like a lot of folks maybe just kind of got lazy and perceived Illinois to just be one of those bottom rung teams that we continue to be historically. But Brett has maybe not brought in the top end talent, at least prep wise, high school wise. He's made some pretty good transfer moves over this past offseason, but the floor has continued to be raised every single year. And it's nice knowing that if we're playing an FCS team or a MAC team, that I don't need to, I mean, we could always lose, but upsets happen. NIU beat Notre Dame, but I no longer go into a game nervous about losing.
Yeah, so it's interesting what you note about new coaches coming into the league, Matt Rule with a lot of fanfare, in particular, Luke Fickell in particular, and how that changes people's perception, which of course it should have nothing to do with what's going on campus within the buildings at Illinois
Right.
and Brett Bielema's capabilities. I don't know if this is something you want to hear, but it really doesn't matter once we get into the season and Illinois starts to produce. But when I was looking at my coaches' rankings during the offseason, and I have a ton of respect for Brett Bielema, he was the first guy on the list, somewhere in the low 20s out of 70 coaches in the Power Five, that I thought, this is the best coach in America where he's at a program that is, I don't want to use the word hopeless, but in regards to winning a championship, it appears as though it's more than even daunting.
And I won't disagree with that. I think this was a very serendipitous moment when Brett Bielema joined Illinois, because he had gotten humbled by that stint at Arkansas. And, he spent a couple of years learning under Brett Bielema, Bill Belichick in the NFL. And so he's someone who wanted to get back into the Big Ten. He grew up in Illinois. And so for him, when that job became open, his name was not brought up initially when Lovie Smith was fired. I was genuinely surprised. It was only a couple days before the actual hiring that Brett Bielema's name started to leak. And truthfully, my initial impressions, I wasn't very excited. I was more excited about the perceived favorite, Lance Leipold, coming to Champaign. But Brett really understands college football, and he really understands Big Ten. I think he's kind of, at the age where he's not really looking to jump anywhere at this point. I think he tried that once before where he sought out money, but at Illinois, if he can produce, 6-7 win seasons annually, he's already going to become one of the best coaches in the program's history. Now, ultimately, speaking as an Illinois fan, like at some point we'd like to make a jump from that. But with Brett Bielema, like his expectations just to make us competitive. That's all we want. We want to reach the levels of what, ideally what Iowa and Wisconsin were a couple seasons back, because Illinois, based on where they're at with the talent in the state, it can be done. It's just that we've never had the right infrastructure there. And so Brett, in my opinion, is not only a great head coach, but he's one of the best CEOs in college football, in the sense that his Rolodex is unlimited. He knows everybody. I was talking to JR, from Voice of College Football, Ohio State, and he's talking about how Ohio State and Illinois are battling over a recruit. And he couldn't believe it, but it's because Brett Bielema is close friends with one of the high school coaches of that particular recruit. And that's just kind of the benefits that come with a guy like Brett.
Talk about a Rolodex here. Sonny, you can catch him on Locked On Illini. Of course, he is the host of the Locked On podcast, Illinois, Illini Cast, Big Ten Show. They're all right here on YouTube, but maybe the best way to keep track of Sonny and be able to go down all those passes, of course, right on X/Twitter. There you see the Sonny V. So please check out Sonny's work. You can tell he's a great friend of the show, great friend of mine. And more than that, for you, he knows his college football and knows Illinois athletics across the board. So basketball season, of course, coming as well, you basketball fans, and then Illinois fans really kick into gear. But hey, they may have some overlap here this year. This might be a great thing.
I think I saw a stat this week that we're one of 8 schools that we're one of the 4 schools that were in the Elite 8 last year in basketball and the top 25 currently right now. So Illinois always been a everything school.
And just to close off kind of what's led us to this point, I think the other narrative out there that's total reality on one half is that going into last season, well, we saw how good the team was in 2021. Well, they got this batch of NFL players, particularly on defense, and Illinois can't keep that up. So they're gone. The defensive coordinator's gone. There's no way they're going to supplement that. And so here we go. It's going to be 4-8 from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that everyone wants to talk about, of course, starting with most teams, would be the quarterback. And Luke Altmaier wasn't around for most of the highlights of last season. That was John Paddock coming in to save the day a few times. Your thoughts about Luke Altmaier's performance in this 3-0 start?
I really do believe that Luke Altmaier is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country. Last year, a lot of opinions were solidified after his 4 interception game in that first half against Penn State. Folks need to remember it was his first college football season as a starter, and he started off the season rough, but the offensive line was in shambles. We had no running game to speak of. I know you've mentioned it multiple times. We barely escaped a game against Toledo. FIU we were struggling with up until about halftime. But once the offensive line situation was settled and Caden Fagan had his emergence as a running back, Luke Altmaier in his last 6 games had 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He had genuinely improved as a quarterback. Now, obviously, he got hurt in that last series against Minnesota. And so John Paddock came in, threw a game-winning touchdown to Isaiah Williams, and Luke was injured for the following week against Indiana, where John Paddock went off for, I think, 530 yards passing, set a school record. So John Paddock at that point had won the job, but I don't know necessarily if Luke had lost the job, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Him and the coaching staff have always had a very good relationship, and Luke has said that he's learned a lot from John Paddock. He's been talking about it over the offseason, and you can see it in the play so far. Like, one of Luke's main issues last year was he didn't necessarily trust himself to make the throw. He'd see the wide receiver, but he would maybe throw it a split second or two too late. And sometimes that would lead to that interception. This year, he's not doing it anymore. He knows he's got playmakers on both sides between Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin. And when he sees a throw to be made, he just makes it. And so he's not forcing anything. He'll take the sack to live another day. He's got 6 touchdowns this year, 0 interceptions, and he's still able to run the ball when the play is not there ahead of him. So, I mean, he's really gradually grown as a quarterback. I think he's one of the more one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the Big Ten, but also in the country.
So even though, Sonny, you were higher on this team than most, are they ahead of schedule even in regards to what you had anticipated at this point?
Not necessarily. So this is the ironic part, right? Like, I had them winning 7 games this year, okay? But I had them losing to Kansas and beating Nebraska. But now, with our struggles, or at least what the weakness on this team seems to be, which is the interior offensive line, I don't see us coming out victorious against Nebraska and that defensive line. Like, I think Luke Altmaier is going to essentially have to have the game of his life in order for us to come out victorious. So, in my own personal projected, season by season, I had us going 3-1. I just had the teams swapped. But if you take a look at our schedule for the next 5 weeks, it's a gauntlet. We're playing 4 ranked teams that include Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, and there's one more I'm missing out of there. Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, and I forget, but Nebraska Friday. So yeah, that's 4 ranked teams of the next 5. So there's a little humbling that's probably about to occur for Illini fans, but for us, it's a simple matter of let's get to 6 wins, and the fact that we're already halfway there, only 3 games in, makes it a little easier to swallow because the back end of the schedule seems a lot easier.
So, Sonny, I love what Fox has done with the college football schedule on Friday nights. So we have had, and I don't know why StreamYard's kicking us. I'm going to have to, there we go.
Yeah.
StreamYard has changed something there where it doesn't automatically transition. Anyway, so we get these better games on Friday. We've always had college football games on Friday from the American Conference or wherever they might be, but focusing on, I think the lineup is like 2 to 3 Big 12 games, and the rest are all Big 10 games on Friday nights. And they're not the best matchups, but they're quality matchups. They're not going to throw the best game of the week on Friday night, but they're on those second, third, fourth levels. You know, they're decent games, and this is one of them we're going to see that's been magnified by both of these teams taking care of business outside the conference. Illinois obviously had to come back with 10 points in the fourth quarter. And so that was impressive on one level. Nebraska's performance against Colorado was impressive on another level, that people were geared up to watch this game. And it became extremely apparent within 2 or 3 drives that they were just physically so much bigger, stronger, and even their perimeter players, when they were in space, would just lower a shoulder on Colorado defenders, and just every man across the board just seemed to be bigger, faster, stronger, like there were 2 different teams. And then they pretty much put it on cruise control. So that was an impressive win. I don't know how much you've been able to see Nebraska. We're going to bring in Sonny. Don't know how much time you've got to hang on the line here, but we've got Adam Ketterman as well. So before we go to Adam as well, we'll ask you, Sonny, to evaluate what you see out of the Huskers. You've talked about the strength of the up the middle on defense. Yeah, Sonny, anything in particular on Nebraska? In addition
I wasn't sure if you were bringing that. No, like for me, the key of the game is going to be Dylan Raiola, right? Illinois, their secondary has played fantastic this year. They've been complete ball hawks. Xavier Scott is having an amazing season thus far this year. And so Dylan Raiola, you know, the first Big Ten game, it's going to be Friday night. A lot of attention is going to be on him. Our goal as Illinois and the defensive coordinator, Aaron Henry, it's going to be to try to rattle Dylan. You know, if we can go up 7-0, 10-3, and all of a sudden put the pressure on Dylan to make plays, they haven't been down this year. He hasn't had to play come from behind. And I had Justin Adams, you know, voice of college football, Nebraska, on the Locked On Illini show this morning. And he talked about he wants to see how when Dylan gets hit by Big 10 linemen, how he gets up, because it's a different ball game compared to kind of the previous opponents that they've been playing. So I think that's going to be the key. It's going to be try to rattle Dylan, you know, have those pick sixes. Hopefully, if we can get points from the defense this time around, then all of a sudden, you know, we can try to milk the clock with Caden Fagan and that Luke Altmaier and the passing game that we have.
Got Adam Ketterman on the line joining us. Appreciate Adam stopping by. You can catch Adam's work at Corn Nation. Adam, what's going on today?
Well, real quick, it's Andy Ketterson, not Adam Ketterman.
Oh, I apologize for that.
That's okay. You're in the ballpark, and that's good enough.
No, it's not good enough. Not good enough. I don't read my DMs. I'm a little bleary-eyed in the morning, apparently. But Andy, appreciate you being here.
Glad to be here. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of talk about Dylan Raiola. He started the season with about as good of a lineup as you could want to bring a freshman into this. He starts off with UTEP, gets the job done. Then he gets Colorado, so he gets to experience like a crazy environment. Like that was one of our craziest like stadium environments in probably a few years, just because of the hatred that goes back with those guys decades. But he's not exactly facing a Big Ten defense yet. He's got Travis Hunter, and well, I guess he had Shiloh Sanders out there for maybe 4 or 5 plays before he got hurt. So there's some good defensive backs. And then last week we have Northern Iowa, and you know their defensive backs did what they could. What he's done in every game is put up a big first half, and then basically gets shut down at that point. He's throwing for about 220 yards a game, and he's getting close to 200 of them by halftime. And the thing that I think is going to surprise Illinois fans, because I know they're expecting like a freshman to get rattled in Big Ten game, hoping for it. And I followed this guy through his recruitment. I've got a friend who knows his dad pretty well. And I've tried to tell people, don't be afraid to expect too much from this guy. He is as good as advertised. And I know there's still a ton to prove, but it's not just the elite arm. It's just that he has like the football acumen. He's grown up around it, for crying out loud. He calls Matt Stafford Uncle Matt because Dominic was his center for 10 years, his dad. And he just has this way of passing every test they throw out in front of him. Now, does that mean I think he's going to go out and throw for 400 yards on Illinois? No. Illinois' defense, like last year, this looks very stout. But I'm not expecting any kind of a shootout in this game. But what you're going to see is a kid who's calm in the pocket to the point where he makes me nervous that he's not a little more skittish. And one of the crazy things is, like, he's already come with Big Ten size. He's about 6'2", 6'3", 225, 230. So he's not a small guy, but where he's going to surprise some people, and I really started noticing it in the Colorado game, was when he'd roll out of the pocket to try and buy some time, and here'd come a guy flying at him, and he just stands there nice and calm, and then just has these amazingly quick evasion, like darts to the left or right, just to make the guy run by him looking silly. And you're not going to see him really scramble and look for yards, which is going to be shocking for people who watch Nebraska for any period of time. Is he will go through like 3 or 4 checkdowns. I think Matt Rule in his one of his press conferences this week said he's seen him like 2 or 3 times this year go to his 5th check. Emmett Johnson against Utah ended up with like a 40-something yard run, and they said that was the 3rd check down. He went up, looked at the defense, checked it once, they adjusted, checked it again to that run, and off he goes through a hole. So look for a kid who'll seem a little mature beyond his years, I guess, more than the arm talent and everything else. That's what I'd say keep an eye on.
If there's anything you guys want to slice up between the two of you asking about the opponent, certainly go at it, and I'll stay out of the way.
I actually have a quick question, because I was starting to put some stuff together for a column yesterday. And I know, once again, like Dylan, it's only 3 games in. What's changed with Luke Altmaier this year? So far, he looks almost like a different guy.
I think it's just learning and tutelage and experience. Again, last year, the difference was he would be just a split second too late on making throws. He's got the arm talent. He's a playmaker. He can make plays with his legs. This year, all of a sudden, he asked John Paddock, what's the difference? And John Paddock had, I think, the quickest snap to release in the Big Ten last year. And so he was making the quick throws because John Paddock was in his 5th year as a starting quarterback in college football. So I think this year, Luke has basically grown a bit and started to trust that, hey, I've got 2 really, really good wide receivers out there. If I throw it to the right spot, they'll come down and get it. And again, he doesn't force throws either. If he's in a dire situation, he'll just go ahead and take the sack instead of trying to force a throw all of a sudden get another interception, which he was very vulnerable to doing at the beginning of last season.
And then one more quick one.
Sure.
I saw that like you got, I can't remember where he came from. I think it was like 2 stops first. But if I'm saying this right, Zachary Franklin.
Correct.
I noticed he's got 2 guys. Did I see right that Zachary Franklin is he's like the current NCAA leader? And
yeah, he's coming into the season, he was the most accomplished wide receiver returning to college football. He had 3 fantastic seasons at UTSA, and those seasons were under our current offensive coordinator, Barry Lunny Jr. Last year, he entered the transfer portal, and he went to Ole Miss, I believe. He played, I think, a couple games, a couple snaps. It wasn't working out. So he shut it down so that he preserved 1 more year of college eligibility. And Illinois has some pretty stringent rules in regards to who they accept when it comes to like underclassmen. But Zachary was able to get his degree at Ole Miss, and then all of a sudden he was able to reunite with Barry Lunny Jr. at Illinois. And so, that's been a transfer that's worked out for both parties.
Interesting. Yeah, that stat kind of jumped out at me. I'm like, is this for real? Because that's a hell of a portal pickup right there.
Yeah, he's again. When we talk about what's made Luke so much better this year, is Zachari's one heck of a safety valve. Zachary is one of the, as I said, he is the most accomplished wide receiver in the country this year. So it's like he knows the mind of a quarterback. He knows what what kind of little moves to do on the defensive back just to get open a split second early. And so Luke is trusting himself to, make the throw in a place where Zakari could be. And it's worked out 3 games in.
Nice.
So, Andy, with the Huskers here, this was a defense that at least statistically was a top 10 defense in the country. Some people would point to the schedule, but it was an extremely good defense. No question about that. Raiola's the huge upgrade. I got to get used to saying Raiola. I just have been saying Raiola for like 3 years, not knowing because I've heard both, but I've gotten into that habit. So Dylan Raiola, huge upgrade at quarterback, obviously. The 2 receivers come in from Wyoming via Texas, Isaiah Nair, Jamal Banks, and from Wake Forest. But outside of Raiola, is this a much different team elsewhere? Are there other components that have improved?
The main thing with getting Banks and Nair, the receiver room is exceptionally deep right now, to the point where Malachi Coleman, who was a freshman last year and was a top 100 recruit, and and got forced into service last year. Rule's actually looking to redshirt him this year, so he has him for 3 more full years, and not that he can get the full use out of him and save him this year when he really doesn't need him quite as much, because we still have Jalen Lloyd back. He had one of the strangest stats last year in that Marvin Harrison Jr. and him tied for most touchdown catches over 50 yards in the Big Ten. The difference being Marvin had about 100 and something receptions probably, and Jalen had 6, and 3 of them were for 50-plus touchdowns. And he's already caught like a 59-yard bomb, a 38-yard bomb, and then had another long one coming to him that they ended up going up and fighting for, and he lost it as an interception. So it's not just those guys. We just broke out another freshman that we beat out 2 guys. Two guys beat out Georgia for 2 guys, basically because one of them's dad went to Nebraska, and the other one was an 8-man player from Ainsworth, Nebraska, Carter Nelson. They finally gave him a little additional time, and I think, not that it was lights out numbers, but he was the leading receiver in the last game with 4 catches for 48 yards and got his first touchdown. And they flew the Georgia coaches out to Ainsworth, which is harder than it sounds to do. Fly a coaching staff. They flew their coaching staff out there twice to try and get him to go to Georgia. So it's a deeper receiver room. The line it's a year older, and all of a sudden that's much deeper. Now it has to be, because we lost 1 guy for the season already, Teddy Prochaska, with his second knee injury, and who knows if that's it for him for good. And then now we've got Jason Mazkua, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, who transferred from Florida, won the starting job, played the first 2 games, and then didn't play against Northern Iowa, is already out for Illinois for the vaunted team reasons or whatever, which could mean anything. And so we're getting that depth tested early. The defense, I love it when people go, "Hey, you guys had a top 10, 15 defense last year." It's like, well, but to be fair, we played in the Big Ten West, which means we faced 5 of the 10 worst offenses in Division I. And so, I think everybody in the Big Ten West had a pretty good defense. But at least as far as going against Colorado, Shadur Sanders, Jimmy Horn, and Travis Hunter, we showed that we could cover those guys, and we also showed what a horrible offensive line that is. So I try not to get too excited about that win, because when you look at it reasonably and get over hey, we kicked the hell out of Colorado for a half, good for us. After Northern Iowa, I looked at the rest of the schedule, and I said, with the possible exception of UCLA, every defensive and offensive line you play this year is going to be tougher than Colorado. So enjoy the victory, but take it with a grain of salt. But defense, if anything on defense, we're deeper. I think that's going to be another plus all through the year, even if it's not going to be loaded up against the West again. I think they'll still be a top 15, 20 defense. So, yeah, we're excited. It just seems like we're a little deeper, a little stronger, a little more athletic, and we have a quarterback that's not going to turn it over almost twice as much as they score touchdowns, which is not.
I am looking forward to this one, because as I was explaining to Sonny, didn't get to see as much of Kansas, Illinois, or the Colorado game as I would like. And typically there are 6 or 7 decent games on at the same time window, but you get this Friday night And unless people really want to see Stanford and Syracuse, they're going to be watching Nebraska and Illinois. They're going to garner like 80% of the TV audience. So, Sonny, before we let you go, a couple things. One would be from a football standpoint, because of what I just mentioned, a lot of people are going to watch Illinois for the first time this year and be like, wow, they're 3-0, they're ranked. We're going to watch this game. Who are some of those guys that we may not know about that could be spotlighted tonight or Friday night?
Well, a couple of seasons ago, Illinois' defense, which was arguably the best in the country, was led by a secondary with Devin Weatherspoon, Sidney Brown, and sorry, my memory escapes who the third one was. We had 3 picks in the top 70. And this year, we've kind of duplicated that. Aaron Henry, the new defensive coordinator, who's in his second year, he struggled a little bit last year, but the secondary was the biggest question on the team coming into this season. In my own season preview, when I ranked the units of the different teams, it was the secondary that I was the most worried about. Ironically enough, and Illinois had spent a considerable amount of NIL bringing in Terrence Brooks, who started for Texas last year, including in the college football playoff. And he's barely made it onto the field this year for Illinois just because of kind of similar reasons. The coaching staff has said that they want to see a little more consistency from him, but he hasn't been starting. In the last game against Central Michigan, he only played, I believe, 3 series, but it's not because the people in front of him are struggling. The exact opposite. You have guys like Xavier Scott, who has been one of the best players in all of the country when it comes to secondary. He had 2 incredible interceptions in that game against Kansas, and he continues. The whole secondary, honestly, is a ball hawking group back there. Matthew Bailey, last year, he was going to be looked on as being our defensive captain, especially taking on that Sidney Brown role, essentially. But he got hurt in his first series against Penn State, and he missed the entire season. He's back this year. So all of a sudden, between Matthew Bailey, who I think is going to become a household name in the Big Ten by the end of the year, and Xavier Scott, who right now is having a fantastic year, and Miles Scott, who I think PFF-wise is graded higher than both of them, I think it's a secondary that it's almost duplicating the success that they had a couple of years prior.
Quan Martin's your guy.
That's it. Yeah.
Sure. Every time I hear somebody say something like, "Oh, who was that guy?" I can't let it go. I got to look it up because I'm like, I like to know everybody's name, and then I'm usually like, "Shoot, how did I not come up with that?" But second round to the Commanders, absolutely. Exactly. Sonny, we appreciate you being here. Love everything that you're doing. What do you have going on this week that you would like everyone to know about?
So, Nebraska, Illinois, Mark, as you said, the whole world's going to be watching. A lot of folks are going to be in Lincoln, 400th sellout in a row. But if you're watching at home, Justin and I, Mr. Voice of College Football Nebraska, me and him are going to be hosting a watch party on our other channel, the Big Ten Show. Basically, we're going to be inviting guests both from the Nebraska side and from the Illinois side, and also just from a national media side to come on and watch the game with us. So if you're looking to have the game on the TV and you have your iPad, definitely tune in to Big Ten Show. Once I drop out of here, I'll drop a link in the chat.
Awesome. Sonny, good to see you as always. Have a great weekend of football, and on Friday night, who knows? Maybe it'll be 4-0 on Saturday morning.
All right, Mark. Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate you being here. Mm-hmm. All right, Andy, one other thing for you in regards to this program, and certainly chime in with anything else that we've missed that you think needs to be highlighted, but just your impressions about Matt Rule. It all seems to be going well right now. Last year seemed to be a carbon copy. I was always hearing good things about this is completely different than the Scott Frost regime. Yep. And by all indications of the recruiting approach, the just ability to communicate with players effectively and be forthright and honest and just to be a class act. All those were great indicators. And the guy's an exceptional communicator. I was at Big Ten Media Days last year, and I came away most impressed with him. I thought, as expected, if you want to give a speech from the podium and want the best guy there, you send PJ Fleck to the podium you want to have a conversation on the side with like 10 or 12 people, then you take Matt Rule there, because the combination of just being polished, but also being very conversational and real, he's got that down to a T. But on the field, obviously, that last stretch of games in 2023 looked like Nebraska football. Oh, got the game at the end. Oh, we're going to do something stupid against Iowa, Maryland. We could go down the list, and we're going to blow the game. So from that standpoint, and the turnover ratio numbers were just incredible. Not just the plus minus, but I saw a lot of metrics that just broke it down into different situations where it was just almost insurmountable to get over that hump. And I know that he emphasized and would tell the media, I've emphasized to the team, we eliminate this and we will be so much better. Just that.
Well, you kind of floated one into my wheelhouse here because and thanks for going back over all those games again. But I kid.
Oh, sorry.
No. I kid because look, I did a series of articles kind of leading up the 2 weeks leading up to the first game, and I was trying to think of a thing to call it. And I just called it "Wary Optimism versus Red Flags," and I did one just on the basically completely new quarterback room, and I even made Heinrich Harburg two different people, a guy who basically got no coaching at quarterback until Rule staff came along, to a guy that actually now gets to work with a dedicated quarterbacks coach. And so we're not quite as skittish about if he has to come into a game or not. But the quarterback room, I spent a lot of time, like without basis, just pretty much my feelings that if we'd have just had below average quarterback play last year, we win 9 games, and I think we do it pretty easily. And then I went and did a stat run on 6 of the 7 losses. I left out the Michigan game because we weren't winning that game with, Lamar Jackson taking the snaps back there. But the other 6 were all, really, I think 5 of them were 1-score games. And the other one was Colorado, which was a close game until like middle third quarter when it started getting away. So, and what I did was just put up the combined quarterback stats for all games, total touchdowns, rushing and throwing, but total turnovers, fumbles, and interceptions. The turnover ratio for those 6 games was 7 total touchdowns versus 17 interceptions. If we just go 7-7 or 17-17, I think we win all 6 of those games. Maybe I'll leave Colorado out. I'll still say we fart that one away late. But the other 5, you're looking at just average play and not turning it over and over and over to them, and in crucial situations. And it's not that big a leap. And so that's why I'm saying it's like Dylan Raiola, he can just have an average freshman season, and it's just going to be a major upgrade because he will do better than below average, but below average would have gotten it done last year, if that makes sense. I just didn't realize that statistically it was actually that god awful in the losses. So that's the one thing, and we're seeing it so far. We've won the turnover battle the first 3 games. And the funny thing is, it's like, well, but 2 of them are UNI and UTEP, but I think we were not even winning those turnover battles against Louisiana Tech and Northern Illinois last year. So I'm taking all these small victories for what I can. Now, the key thing is, and this is where you'll see like our fans' PTSD come in, if we're tight with Illinois late in the fourth quarter and somebody fumbles one or gets picked or there's a horrible call that blows up a drive, you're going to see like Nebraska fandom's PTSD kick back in a hard way. And we'll see how it turns out because, hey, 3-0, nice start. Things look improved. We haven't played a 1-score game yet. And I'm really looking forward, perhaps fearfully, to seeing how we do, because this could be that game. We're 9-point favorites. And if you look at how that game kind of went last year, we won 20-7 while literally doing everything under the sun to try and piss that game away. I think we turned it over a couple times, dumb penalties, kept giving it back to them. And that game, unlike the Colorado game, the defense hung in there, kept getting the ball back and preserved the lead. I think they gave up like one long pass for a touchdown there in the fourth quarter, maybe. But other than that, stellar game. It started off with them driving to like our half-yard line, and then we had the goal line stand and
remember that
yards, and it's like, oh, hey, the offense is going to work tonight. It's like, nah, that was about it. But still, that's where I think they get the spread from. But if Luke Altmaier really is the different guy, but On the other hand, we haven't blitzed yet this year. We've sent no more than 4 guys, and even in the Colorado game where we're running Shadur Sanders all over the field, we never sent more than 4. So, maybe we'll have a little surprise or 2 there. Who knows?
Absolutely, and that was a weeknight game as well.
Let's see. That was a night game. It was a Saturday night game, but it was a night. Yeah.
I thought it was a weeknight game.
We only do the one Friday night, or we only do the one Friday game a year, but
okay,
definitely a night game. It was wild. It was wild.
I was almost positive that was a Thursday or Friday game.
No, they played the Thursday game the previous week against North Dakota State. We've played 3 straight Saturdays and this will be our 3rd straight night game, and we've got like a really wild all-time record in night games in Memorial. It's something like 52-10. And we've won, 2 so far this year.
That was a Friday night game.
Colorado?
No. Illinois last year.
Oh! I'm sorry.
That's what I was talking about.
Absolutely. I thought you
I
were
was
talking about
99% sure. Then I just looked it up. Yeah.
That's why we were both so sure. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. This is our 2nd straight
Good
night
stuff.
game on Friday. Yeah, with Illinois. Absolutely.
All right, Andy. Well, we appreciate you stopping by.
Sure.
And it was great to have you on here. So you are welcome anytime.
Oh,
and
happy to do it.
Talk Huskers. Absolutely. Thanks for filling in and being here. And say hi to John for us.
Any horrible messages I should give him? People like to give John the needle.
None from me. Not this time. I'm not. I'm not too quick-witted this time of the morning. So we'll catch it next time.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Enjoy the game.
Thank you. Go Big Red.